Richard Pryor. I don't know if you ever really got into him, but he talks about when he went to Africa, and he said he was in this Jeep, and he was riding around, and he was looking around, and he saw these people, these beautiful black people, and there was faces that looked familiar to him, and all of a sudden he was overwhelmed with emotion and he cried. I had that moment. My first day there, we was coming from, we were going, I had a driver come to pick me up, and we were going from the airport to Kalenjin land, and they decided to detour through the Masai Mara. And first we went through the city, of course, and we're going through the city, and I'm looking, and you got these black people, there's shops, there's black people behind the shops, and we're going through the Masai Mara, you know, and the Masais, they still, a lot of them like to dress in their traditional garb, and I'm looking, and then we see the wild animals, and then we went through this little village, and all of a sudden, it really did hit me. Everyone that I see, you know, these people look just like me. They own this land, they work this land, they govern this land, and that reality, it was overwhelming. I just started bawling. I'm sitting in the back seat, and the driver, he pulls over. Are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm great. But it's like, you know, I spent a lot of my childhood in Portland, and here, you know, I could get in the car and I could drive for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, and I might run across one black guy who owns, you know, a little shop or something. Drive some more miles and wait a couple of weeks or whatever, and I might meet another black guy who has a PhD. Wait another couple months, and I might meet another black guy who has, you know, some type of ideal of how to change the economy for the betterment of all people. You just don't have any examples here in Portland. Now, you know, down south in Georgia, of course, you know, in Atlanta, it's a whole different animal. But in Portland, you know, I spent a lot of my childhood in Lake Oswego, or as we affectionately call it, Lake No Negro, or not so affectionately, actually. And it's just growing up, it just didn't have it. Even going to university here, I mean, this is like liberal central, and I told a friend of mine, I've been blessed. I've traveled around the world. I've literally been on every continent. I've lived in about 4 countries, visited about 15 others. America is the only place, and especially Portland, Oregon, is the only place that I never, not for a second, lose sight of the fact that I'm a black man. Never. It's always with me. Every moment, every waking moment, I'm aware that I'm a black guy. I'm talking to you right now. I'm a black guy talking to a white man who has a PhD, and he got a camera in my face, and he's looking for a story. You know, I'm a black guy. I'm not just a man sitting here. I'm not just a man that's trying to get an education. I'm a black man trying to get an education. Wears on you. Wears on you. Just want to be a man. Just want to be liked because I'm a nice guy, or disliked because I've been an asshole to you today. You know, whatever, you know. Get tired of being a black man. Just want to be a man, not a human being. Not a black man, a man.
You know, Whoopi Goldberg went to Africa. Do you remember what she said when she came back?
Not quite, no. But
I'd be interested in your response. Whoopi Goldberg said, you know, I came back from Africa and I realized I am not an African American, I'm an American.
mm-hmm.
It was a very interesting comment. What do you think she meant by that?
There's a huge separation, and I can understand that kind of sentiment, and I run across that sometimes. You know, a resistance to wanting to identify with Africa. We are so many generations removed from the homeland that our experience, it feels like Africa is no longer in our DNA, our psychological and sociological makeup. And for many African Americans, our Black Americans, I guess that's their reality. For me, that my home, the way that I was raised, that just wasn't the reality. I was raised very much to be an African who happened to have been born in America. I was raised knowing our stories. I was raised adhering to our traditions. Not all of them, but many of them. Um, I was raised with a lot of the old values, even more so than some of my cousins that were born there, who were born in the city. A lot of their values are very westernized now. Um, I have a very uh, small town, old world way of looking at things and the way that I was raised. Um, by the time I was 13 years old, I mean, my family was in politics, lobbyists and this kind of stuff, and uh, we socialized intimately, mainly with other Africans, very Pan-African type of way from all different parts, and not too many Americans. By the time I was 13 years old, I had already had 3 or 4 girls promised to me as my wife. You know, my best friend at one point, a female, uh, I think we were like 10, 11, somewhere in there. Our parents had arranged for us to be married, and we grew up laughing at that ideal. We were like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna marry you." Not gonna happen. But when I got older, if I would have pressed the issue, I probably could have married her. It's kind of interesting way of being raised. I was always America has never really felt like home. I've always been a man without a country, not quite African, not quite American. Most black Americans find it hard to relate to me um, because I am so dark. I am so black. Most whites, whether they realize it or not, fall on their old cliches about who I might be when they first meet me. They see me, I'm very black. I got the big lips, the broad nose, and they make a lot of assumptions based on that. It's kind of lonely. Never really, but Whoopi, that was the original question. Whoopi, I think, she's so far removed that it's hard for her to relate. It would be much the same way I feel. It's foreign. She is more American than she is anything else. People raised in this country, they become enculturated, saturated with the American dream and the American way of looking at things. If that's your reality, then that's what you are.
What message would you like to give? Yeah, it's more interesting actually. What message would you like to give to a bunch of young black kids who think America's the only place in the world? What do you want to send? What do you want to say to people?
The message that I actually do give them when they'll stop long enough to listen to me: go home, and learn.
By saying, when I talk to young black guys,
When I talk to young black guys, one of the first things I tell them is go home to the motherland, see what it's like, see what the people are like, see what they look like, see what they talk like, see what their dreams are, see what their drive is. Understand that drive, and that's really important right there. That drive, if you start understanding that drive, it'll wash away any tendency toward what I call the whining of the black man. Sometimes my people, I hate to say, have a very accusatory tone to them when it comes to white people. The white man won't let me do this. The white man won't let me. Man, screw all of that. I'll be damned if a white man gonna tell me what I'm gonna do and what I'm not gonna do. What I wanna do is what I'm gonna do. No one's gonna stop me. You go home, if you go home, you'll see people living in abject poverty. the most gut-wrenching, soul-tearing poverty that they can imagine, even probably beyond their imagination. And yet, you look into the eyes of these kids and you see that they have not given up hope, that they still have a belief in God, they still have a belief in family, they still have a belief in their own innate abilities to rise above. And then I come back home and I see in the eyes of young black kids, you know, a desire to get over, a desire to defeat the white man. It's bullshit. I mean, excuse my language, but it's bullshit. The white man is not the enemy of young blacks. They're their own worst enemy. Selling drugs to each other, the glorification of street life, the blaming of someone else instead of looking inside and saying, where have I fallen short? Has the white man did things to my people? Absolutely. Historically, absolutely. And even today, right now, I'm on this campus, and I do feel like, you know, there are certain powers to be on this campus that would victimize me if I allowed it. And they try to victimize me by judging me. They try to victimize me by, like, when they see me walking down this street, right down this street, this corridor at nighttime, they'll tend to move a little bit away. They try to victimize me when I sit in one of the lobbies late at night and some kid calls you know, the security on me. There's a strange black man sitting in the lobby. I got a ticket for that. I'm fighting the case right now because of that. I mean, but that victimization can only be complete if I embrace it. When I talk to young blacks, I tell them, don't embrace it. Don't embrace it. Reject it. Yes, it will always come. As long as we're in this land, it will always come. And I don't really see a day people was all celebrating when President Obama became president. Yeah, you know, I voted for him, and did I cry? I cried. I cried my ass off, you know, because I remember just a year earlier, or before he even started running, someone had asked me, do I think I would see a day where a black man would be the president of the United States? I said, yeah, sure. When I see an elephant fly, yeah, you know, I never thought I'd see it. So yeah, I cried. But electing a politician, because at the end of the day, he's not a black man, he's a politician. He's not a white man, he's a politician at the end of the day, and there are breeds separate than everything else. So yeah, I was happy, but that's not the end all to be all of us recognizing our freedom. Us recognizing our freedom is exactly that. Us recognizing our freedom. Not a white man signing a piece of paper saying you have been freed. Not a white man saying you can have a job over here. Does that help? Yeah. But it doesn't define my freedom. My freedom is defined by what lives inside of me. They can only really get that if they go home. If they go home to Africa. Even if they don't go home to Africa, if they go to some place where people are living in abject poverty and they see the freedom that lives in people's hearts. People who, by the way, don't have political freedom. People who, by the way, if they was to open their mouth and say that the president of their country is an asshole, would probably disappear. They still a lot of times have more freedom than a lot of the young African Americans I meet here who have enslaved themselves.